Morning, everyone. My name is Michael Costin, and as Dr. Siebert said, I am an assistant director with the AVMA. At the AVMA, I serve as the staff consultant to our Committee on Antimicrobials, and I've been asked to come here today and give you a report on what we've been up to for the past year. First, let me say it's always an honor for the AVMA to be invited to participate in your meeting, so thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our activities. AVMA strives to advance veterinary medicine and support its professionals in the provision of quality veterinary services. We believe antimicrobials are an incredibly important part of the veterinarian's toolkit, and we're in full agreement that they must be used judiciously. AVMA is committed to ensuring that medically important antimicrobials remain effective medicines for animals and for people. Okay, so let me start, just to give some of you who may not be familiar some background on the Committee on Antimicrobials. 2.5 years ago, the AVMA formed the Committee on Antimicrobials. Prior to that, antimicrobial issues were being handled by 4 or 5 separate volunteer entities, which made it really hard for us to get a consistent message out in a timely fashion. So the AVMA decided to form the Committee on Antimicrobials. It's comprised of 9 members, each a representative of an allied veterinary association, and all of them are required to have specific background, either being microbiology, epidemiology, virology, and they are nominated by their respective entities. The Committee on Antimicrobials was charged with maintaining oversight of AVMA's antimicrobial policies, serving as the primary resource to the AVMA on antimicrobial issues, promoting the AVMA as the leader and trusted source of information on antimicrobial use in animals, and serve as the primary collaborator with the human medical entities in a One Health approach to antimicrobial issues, promoting antimicrobial stewardship through the development of policies and recommendations, and providing AVMA members with resources to implement and promote antimicrobial stewardship. So that's what we were charged with doing. And now I will tell you, we've had a really busy and productive 2018. So starting a year ago, this past January, the AVMA House of Delegates, which is comprised of all 50 state VMAs, as well as representatives of the major species and practice interest veterinary associations, unanimously approved the AVMA's definition of antimicrobial stewardship and core principles of antimicrobial stewardship in veterinary practice. A parallel effort to the Pew, we are focusing on veterinarians, and what led us to do this was if you had 10 veterinarians in a room and asked them to describe antimicrobial stewardship, you got 10 different definitions. Now that we have unanimously approved this, we have unified behind a common definition and understanding of what antimicrobial stewardship means in veterinary practice. This is a big step for the veterinary profession. So you can see our core principles. We've also identified and agreed upon these core principles, which should be included in the development and implementation of antimicrobial stewardship plans, regardless of species focus or practice type. These principles are modeled after the CDC's core principles of outpatient practice or clinics. By modeling after the CDC's core principles, that establishes a common foundation for the AVMA to work with the human medical field in a One Health approach to fighting antimicrobial resistance. As you can see here on the screen, we've developed these. And the reason we focused on just doing the core principles as opposed to developing a template for antimicrobial stewardship was depending on the type of practice you're in. A brick and mortar companion animal practice is significantly different than a mobile or ambulatory dairy or equine practice, which is different than poultry practice. Rather, we decided we should focus on the core principles which should be included, which would provide the common ground regardless of practice type you're in. Some of the work we've been doing in the last year to support this in order to promote the acceptance and incorporation of the core principles, as well as help drive development and implementation of antimicrobial stewardship plans within veterinary medicine, The committee has spent much of the last year developing a checklist for these core principles. This checklist will assist veterinarians when implementing stewardship plans at the practice level. The committee has completed their work on this document. We've actually handed it over to the AVMA's Marketing and Communications Division, who are doing the final development. We are hoping to release this resource by the new year. Now, what I can tell you, I'm also happy to tell you, just in this past week, the AVMA's Board of Directors approved as policy the new AVMA definitions of antimicrobial use for treatment, control, and prevention. And it says it right here. This is the beginning of it. The Committee on Antimicrobials developed this policy to support a white paper committee report that they've been working on for the past year. The committee looked at the various definitions of treatment, control, and prevention that are out there by WTO, WHO, FAO, EU, and they're all slightly different. And they've also led to, and those slight differences have led to some confusion, especially when we're talking at the international level, because none of them take into account what those words mean in the U.S. perspective. The committee realized those terms were not defined from a U.S. veterinary/agricultural perspective. It felt it was necessary to define those therapeutic terms in the context of how they were used in the United States. So they proposed these definitions as policy, which will also support the white paper that they're working on getting published with the Journal of American Veterinary Medical Association. We're hoping that will be published shortly after the new year. The next slide has the actual definitions themselves printed. I realize the print is kind of small, but I think this slide deck will be provided to you. Or if you want to look them up, they are posted on the AVMA's website now. If you go to the AVMA's website, onto their policy page on the right side, and then scroll down to Antimicrobial, you'll be able to see these. So we did work on some other policy stuff, but I won't go into all of that. Those were the two big ones for this year. One of our other actions for the Committee on Antimicrobials is to monitor legislative and regulatory proposals that come out that could impact the practice of veterinary medicine, and we're pretty busy this year. At the federal legislative level, both PARA and PAMTA were reintroduced. The committee reviewed and revised the AVMA's position papers on this and made sure that our message was clear for the Governmental Relations Division in Washington. At the state level, Illinois introduced a bill, Senate Bill 3429. This bill would require animal producers to file an annual report with the state indicating what antibiotics were used for what indications, at what dose and duration for every animal every 12 months. And that information would not have been protected from Freedom of Information requests. At the request of the Illinois Veterinary Medical Association, the AVMA got involved at the state level. We supplied a response. We helped the Illinois VMA develop their response as well. The regulatory level, Maryland proposed a similar bill. I can't remember the name of it, regulation. It was a new chapter that would have prevented or prohibited the use of medically important antibiotics in a consistent pattern. Or if you read it, they were looking at preventative uses. At the request of the Maryland VMA, we got involved in that, developed a response, and helped them to develop their response. And last but not least, the FDA's recent announcement of their 5-year stewardship plan. Not a lot of specifics out on that yet, but the AVMA's Committee on Antimicrobials expects they will be spending a lot of time reviewing Federal Register notices generated by that in the next year. All right. One of our other big responsibilities is outreach and partnerships, and this year we have been very busy. AVMA has been really active this year on advocacy and outreach. Some of the highlights are as follows. So we'll start at the top left. AVMA, in collaboration with the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association as well as the Federation of Veterinarians in Europe, developed a new joint statement on continuous monitoring of antimicrobial use and antimicrobial resistance. This is a new statement. It's currently with the boards of the respective associations looking for approval. I believe the AVMA board just approved it this past weekend, and I think Canada has approved it, so we're waiting on the Europeans. Once approved by all three associations, that statement will be released. It will be published on all three organizations' websites. So that's a new one. We're in the process of reviewing a joint statement we have on judicious antimicrobial use. We expect that to be wrapped up in the first part of next year. Let's scoot to the right here. PACCARB is the Presidential Advisory Committee Combating Antimicrobial Resistant Bacteria. AVMA was contacted on several occasions by different working groups within the PACCARB and asked our opinion on best strategies to drive education and implementation of stewardship plans in veterinary medicine. Through several presentations and written submissions, excuse me, the AVMA informed the PACCARB that it was our opinion the best way to drive education and implementation in the veterinary field was to incorporate a consistent message into the various avenues of veterinary education, i.e. veterinary curricula, the North American Veterinary Licensing Exam, USDA accreditation modules, and then state CE requirements. If you could get a consistent message into those four avenues of veterinary education, you could be assured that all practicing veterinarians and newly graduating veterinarians would be getting the same message, and additionally you would be able to provide metrics to show how many veterinarians were being exposed to that in a given period of time. Obviously that would require, that's beyond the scope of just the AVMA. You know, there's 29 veterinary schools now, plus AVMC that would need to be involved, USDA, the accreditation modules, NAVLE, and then all 50 states. Make that a CE requirement, but if it that would be a way to do it. So that was our recommendation to the PACCARB. More recently, we participated in the OIE's second global conference on AMR. That was just a couple weeks ago in Marrakesh, Morocco. I had the pleasure of going there for 2 whole days. It took me 2 days to get there and 2 days to get back, but it was a great short visit. Pretty country. And it was interesting to hear about this on an international perspective. Even though, you know, in our world in the U.S., the message is consistent throughout the world, and everyone's aware of it and concerned about it. Not everyone is as far along as we are on what they're going to do, but everyone is starting to buy in, I would say. So, we've also had some interaction. We participated in the New Hampshire Antimicrobial Stewardship Symposium. Obviously now we're participating here in NIAA. We committed to the CDC's 2019 Antimicrobial Challenge. We actually sent a representative to New York to participate in the kickoff in that. For that was held in conjunction with the UN General Assembly. And not on this slide, the AVMA is a stakeholder to the U.S. delegation to the Codex Alimentarius' Task Force on Antimicrobial Resistance, and we have been asked to supply a representative to participate in the delegation to their upcoming meeting in South Korea, which we have agreed to, so that'll be a first for us, and we're looking forward to that. All right, so that is a lot of what we've done in the last year. I would like to say, you know, our committee is comprised of about 18 volunteers and 3 representatives. We've met for a total as a unit for 4 days and 7 hours and accomplished all of that. I've been blessed to be able to work with some really outstanding individuals on this committee who are really committed to driving this forward and helping the veterinary community. They give a lot of their time for really no compensation at all. So I would like to thank them in this venue. As few of them are here, so thank you very much. So So what are our activities for the coming year? Some things that we currently have ongoing. We are in the process, in addition to all that I've already said, the Committee on Antimicrobials reviewed every single page on the AVMA website that had anything to do with antimicrobials or antibiotic resistance and revised them. We submitted them to the Marketing and Communications Division, who is in the process of redoing our website. So we have one single landing page for antimicrobials, which will make it easier to direct anyone we want to the AVMA website and do a better job at getting our message out. We are hopefully going to be releasing that around the new year as well. At least that's the plan. And for this coming year, Committee on Antimicrobials will be having a conference call next week where we'll be discussing our plans for next year for developing resources. And we also expect to be heavily involved in monitoring and responding to Federal Register notices coming or being generated from the FDA's 5-year plan. There's some things in there that the AVMA is really interested in. For instance, moving the remaining antimicrobials that are available OTC to prescription status. FDA has talked about looking at defining durations of use for those products which currently lack defined durations of use. So the Committee on Antimicrobials will be heavily involved in looking at that.